Pananda Kanhara Charlie McCoubry Idui Avi
Recording in progress.
Akinor. Can I welcome everyone to today's meeting, which is a hybrid meeting. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded and will be available for viewing after the meeting. Should the live streaming fail, the meeting will continue and a recording will be available through the council website following the conclusion of the meeting. Can I remind members that translation facilities are available and for those attending on Zoom to choose your language of choice. For those wishing to speak in the chamber, please raise your hand. For those on Zoom, please use the raise hand function. We will alternate between speakers in the chamber and on Zoom. For those attending remotely, please note that those in the chamber will be able to use the chat facility. Committee members who are attending remotely are required to leave their camera on throughout the debate and when voting in order to maintain the integrity of the decision-making process. If you do need to leave the meeting temporarily, pop a message in the chat function so the Democratic Services Officer is aware, and then let us know when you return. I expect everyone present and participating in the meeting to conduct themselves appropriately, be respectful to each other, and that applies to members, officers, and anyone in the public gallery. So we'll move on to agenda item 1, which is apologies for absence.
Apologies received from Councillor Liz Roberts and from Councillor Julie Fallon. Any others? No.
No. So agenda item 2 is declarations of interest, Code of Local Government Conduct. Members are reminded they must declare the existence and nature of their declared personal interest. Would any members like to declare an interest? Councillor Louise?
I think you know what I'm going to say. Matt's going to hop in about town councillor.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thanks, Leader. 10 community councillors present. We'll make a note of those present. That's in relation to the recommendations from Finance Resource Overview and Scrutiny Committee in respect of the notice of motion for public conveniences closures.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Agenda item 3 is urgent matters. As you'll know, there is an urgent matter, but I suggest that we'll deal with that after agenda item 6, members, if that's okay. So move on to agenda item 4, which is minutes of the meeting of the minutes of Cabinet. To approve and sign as a correct record the minutes of the previous meeting. Those are on pages 4 to 11. Members, if we're happy with the minutes as an accurate record, can I have a proposer add on? Jeff, can we show we're in favour of accepting the minutes? Thank you. Agenda item 5 is minutes of the Conwy Harbour Advisory Committee, which are on pages 12 to 14. Councillor Gromley, do you want to take us through those? Right, just pop your mic on, Gromley, please.
Right, yes, happy to move the minutes to the Conwy Harbour Advisory Committee, and I'm sure we can answer any questions if there are any.
Okay, members, are there any questions on the minutes of the Harbour? If could I have a second of them, accept the minutes. Councillor Emily, could we show we're in favour? Okay, thank you. So agenda item 6 is matters referred to the Cabinet by Scrutiny Committee for consideration. This is notice of motion in relation to the proposed closure of public toilets, and that's on pages 15 to 119. Councillor Gromley, do you want to take us through that?
Thank you again, Leader. This is, as you know, brought to us from a Scrutiny Committee that was held the other week, and there were recommendations from that Scrutiny Committee that they need more detail and more consultation. I think the report that was prepared and presented by Irene at that meeting was very concise. It's gone through all the procedures that we went through in delivering the strategy and the consultation that was held. Obviously, there were reasons outside our control with Purden and wanting to know that we didn't get the information out as quickly as we would have liked to have done, but certainly all that information did go out, and as a result of that, many community councils and community groups came to us with alternative options to look at the toilets. So if the report is there, any questions you may wish to ask, I'm sure I or Gary can answer those questions.
Okay, members, I'll open up. Any other questions or observations from members? Got Councillor Paul and then Councillor Louise.
I raised this issue at the FROSC meeting. I voted for these cuts, fully own them, and we are where we are today. My concern, though, is on the closed toilet sites and the costs going forward now in managing those sites And my concern is, are we going to sell some of them? Are we going to demolish them and make them public spaces? Now, I know in terms of the detail of this, that will have to be worked through, but I really do think we need a report on what's actually going to happen to sites which will now become blighted sites. And I think that report should come to the council, I think, before Christmas, because the costs of doing whatever we have to do will have to be a part of the 2025-26 budget. We've also got, as part of that, some anomalies in Abergele, which I represent. We spent about £50,000 doing up the Pentramar Park public toilet because we couldn't afford it. It's never been opened. It was ready to be opened November last year. And so there may be other sites like this, but that's a site which we need to know, and the residents need to know, well, what's going to happen with it going forward. And we need to tie this down so that we have a duty of candor, basically, to tell people what's going to happen to these sites going forward and how are we going to fund that.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Bring Gromway back in.
Certainly, that is very much part, on our minds. If any of these buildings that are no longer fit for purpose or no longer desired by the communities, we will be looking at it to remarket them for alternative uses. And that is certainly part of the plan. Whether we need to report on that, I'm not sure, but that is the intention. In the meantime, there are community groups and individuals coming forward and offering us alternatives for some of those sites already, and our officers are in discussion with individuals on maybe repurposing some of the sites. I think the one that you mentioned particularly, Paul, the one that would spend money and is being unable to be open because of vandalism problems, there are local businesses in the area that require toilets for their own needs, for their own staff, that are looking at the alternatives of maybe taking on those facilities. Now, I think some of those toilets, if managed by individuals on site, would be far more sustainable than sites that are not manned, basically.
Yep.
I'm fully understanding from Gromway and the officers that they're working through the fine detail of this, and it will take time. But I do think, in terms of our duty of candor to the public, we need a formal report that says, I think by Christmas, this is where we're up to. We won't have sorted all of it out, but it's not unreasonable, I think, to have a public document by Christmas saying, this is where we're up to, and this is what it's going to cost us in the 2025-26 budget. Because it is going to cost us money just managing as many as 19 sites. It is going to cost us money, and we need to be clear about what those costs are.
Yeah, I mean, I think our first protocol is try and find solutions and try and find alternative provision for the ones that we can no longer afford to keep open. But I think it's a fair point, Paul, that we bring back an update as to where we're up to and where those toilets are. Well, there's no interest in taking them on, or there's maybe not the demand for them, then we will bring a disposal paper to say this is where we're up to and this is where we're progressed. So I think that's something we're more than happy to do. Councillor Louise.
Thank you, Leader. And and thank you for those words. I'm going to pull Councillor Paul back down the line because I don't want to talk about what we do when toilets are closed. I want to talk about keeping them open. And this is exactly what this notice of motion and the recommendation from scrutiny asked, is that we be given more time. Now, we can debate about where we are and county councils not being informed early enough. But I can guarantee you on behalf of the Llandudno area that there have been very fruitful discussions over the last couple of weeks. And I'd like to thank Gary Williams for being incredibly good at getting back to me as Chair of Finance of Llandudno Town Council with all the information I requested. And I've had conversations with community groups and friends groups and church groups, which is exactly why we wanted that heads up early so we could have those conversations. But we are where we are. And the notice of motion is asking for more time. Now, I appreciate every day they stay open, that has an impact on ERF's budget, but I need to know we need the decision today as to whether you're going to take notice of what scrutiny have said and give us more time and what that exactly means. I know you can't be unending. I appreciate we can't just say until because things run away. But if we could have more time, I have a council meeting on Thursday as a town councillor, and we are looking at ways that we can come together with other groups to keep these toilets open. So I want to know what the decision will be by Cabinet, considering that scrutiny asked for more meaningful consultation. Can you please give us more time, a couple of months up till Christmas, keep them open, don't mothball them, don't close them, and give us more time. If we can't find a solution and we can't find the money, then so be it. But please, we need more time.
So obviously some of the toilets are closed on a seasonal basis anyway, and they're maintained. Would it be possible, Garrett, just in terms of if it is mothballed and then a solution's found in a month or two, is that doable? That it wouldn't be, once we close the door, it's not gone forever? Because there's that point about whether we keep them on to bridge the gap or whether we can sort of commit that they'll still be under our care. And if we find a solution, then we could rebuild. Do you have an opinion on that, Grant?
Locking up the toilets, closing the toilets for a period of time would not negate reopening them if there was a solution that was forthcoming.
Thank you. Could I just, and I've got Councillor Tristan and Councillor Gareth. Aaron, I think it's important, we are focusing on what we're closing here, but there's a lot of work going on to try and promote the other facilities we have in our libraries and leisure centres and signposting that people can use these. The big advantage of these is I'm not saying they're vandal proof, but they're supervised. So Aaron, would it be possible to talk us about the other provision that's there rather than the sort of what we see as our typical public toilet?
Yeah, of course. And it's possibly, time that we reimagine what we think public loos are. They may not be dark, cold buildings on the side of the road. We have nice, warm, lit buildings right across the county that have public available toilets in them. I just want to reassure councillors and the public that our publicly accessible buildings, libraries, leisure centres, gyms, that sort of thing, they have public accessible loos available to the public. As I said, the toilets are safe, they're clean, and the buildings are well staffed. Just to make sure that everyone is aware that we can use those toilets as you want. Our comms team has produced a poster, and that will be shared with managers, and they can be put up across the county just to welcome people in, that they can use the toilets available in those buildings. So yeah, just want to reassure councillors and the public, we still have public loos across the county.
I got Cynhyrchu Tristan and Gareth, then Councillor Cheryl.
Diolch yn fawr, dwi'n mynd I siarad yn Gymraeg os cae.
Thank you. I'm going to speak in Welsh. Llanefydd is in the spotlight here, and I think that Councillor Dilwyn at the Frost meeting voiced this question of the consultation and the fact that in the countryside that the Eisteddfod and the Royal Welsh occurred that the consultation wasn't fair, that people in the countryside haven't had the opportunity to voice their views on this. What's interesting for me, the part of my ward in Llansannan, is that the community has now, for some years, taken ownership of the toilets as Menter Broaled, and they're very successful, and they're clean, and they sold the toilets to the community council and the Menter Broaled for £1. The question is, in Llanefydd, for example, Councillor Aaron referred to other areas to go to the toilet. In Llanefydd, there isn't anywhere. The tavern is open for 3 days a week, and therefore there's nowhere else with facilities. If the closure is going to happen and selling the toilets, I know that the community is considering the issue, but that they are led to believe that the toilets are going for the market price. Well, what is that? If the closure is happening, I propose that the toilets are transferred to the community council for £1, as happened in Llansannan, so that they then have the opportunity to spend on them and to make them clean and safe for the needs of the 21st century, the 22nd century even. I believe that more time is required and more consultation with the community, but if the closure is happening, that we consider offering for a small charge to the community so that they can develop them, so rather than there's a price for the community councils to buy them, but then to spend substantially on them. Thank you.
Tristan.
There's obviously some confusion here because the negotiations are ongoing, and putting a pause on the actual the toilet strategy is not going to achieve anything different to what is already happening, because those discussions are there. Gary is having these discussions with numerous people that come forward. There's been a slight pause since the notice of motion, because people out there that were showing interest want to see what our final decision is, which is quite understandable. But as far as Llanivir toilets, the option is there for them to have them at the same sort of terms as Llansannan and other places, because at the end of the day, it's costing us to keep those facilities. And if a community group can take them over and manage them better, it's a win-win for the community. So certainly that is an option. I personally would move that we do not accept the recommendations from scrutiny, that we go ahead with the scrutiny with the strategy as planned, and those negotiations continue with all interested parties on the alternatives. If we put a pause on it, it's got to cost us more money, which will inevitably mean that there'll be pressure on other parts of the budget. So it's been to scrutiny. It was approved in the budget, and I'm very pleased with the people are coming forward now, the groups coming forward showing an interest in taking ownership of these toilets, which I think in the long run is a far better solution, because that ownership means a sense of place, sense of pride, and the community very often can give that attention that the authority can no longer give because of our financial position.
Joel Cromway. I've got Councillor Gareth, Cheryl, and then Councillor Chris.
Thank you. I don't want to run over old arguments, but the fact that only 4 town councils or parish councils have engaged in this exercise in any meaningful way surely tells us that something hasn't gone right, that something's gone amiss, and that everybody didn't understand what the implications were. So I would say that, yes, we need to keep these toilets open until there's been those meaningful consultations. And also, I'd hope that we would have some meaningful figures and statistics to be able to give the town councils on which to base their decisions, because this is a wellness issue, it's a public health issue. We should know, how many locals are using the toilets, how many of them have got disabilities. Is it going to affect their dignity? Is it going to affect their ability to get out and about the area and live their lives and socialize? So we need to know what the impacts are. Whilst, I would hope that was done already, and it may be too late and the timescale's too late, but we should be basing our decisions on informed information and statistics rather than that. Yes, we know we're short of money, but let's make good, important decisions. And to be fair to the town councils, I understand there's a request now with the refurbished paddling pools that you want contributions from town councils to keep the paddling pools open. If they don't contribute or they don't engage, the paddling pool is going to be closed. They should be coming to town councils with a whole package of everything that's expected of them so that they can plan their finances, because the money still comes from the same pot. It still comes from the council taxpayers in Conwy. So my request is that we suspend the closure of the toilets and the seasonal closure of the toilets until the town councils have had the opportunity to properly make informed decisions on these matters. Thank you.
Leader, Leader, can I
So,
come
so
back on that?
I'm a member of Abergala Town Council and negotiations started in 2023. I think officers have been really good. Councillor Gromway came, Gary's come in a number of times to discuss the Town Council, and we have engaged. So my personal experience is different from yours. And I think you know our financial situation. If you're asking for these toilets to stay open indefinitely, to collect evidence, I know at scrutiny you were talking about whether people are tourists or not. That's a very open-ended thing. Who's going to collect this information? Who's going to stand outside there and ask those questions? How much is that going to cost? And over what period is that going to take place? Because clearly we're moving into the winter season now. So if you want to do that, then there has to be a recognition that's going to cost money. Does that come out of the existing budget? That service had to make an 11.3% cut last year. I think it's only fair that if you want extra money spending, then you identify where that budget's coming from, or it goes in council tax next year, because we're not doing this because we want to see toilets closed. And be clear, we're not closing all the toilets. We've worked really hard to try and increase the provision in our existing buildings. But for an individual who relies on that particular toilet, that will be a loss to them, and I absolutely understand that. But we're trying to find a balanced approach here to be fair. And we did an equality impact assessment on the original work, which was done. But I absolutely recognise people are paying more council tax and getting less services. But that is the nature of the budget that we've got, because 70% of our funds comes from central government. So I think it's only fair that if we are asking for additional money to be spent, that we identify where we want that money to come from. So over to you, Gareth.
Thank you. As I said, in an ideal situation, we would have had this information for the town councils already. Surely we knew at the beginning of the year that we were planning to close the toilets. So, you know, it's not beyond the wit of man to have actually had some students possibly employed from Llandrillo, even if it to collect some stats,
Can I respond
even if
to-
it's really, really limited.
Can I respond to that, Leader? Because the information was out there. I sit on Conway Town Council as a town councillor. I sit on Henry Community Council. The information went out in Amanda's letter about the pressure on the council's budgets, and all the community councils that were interested took the opportunity to engage with our officers and were given the information. Now, the fact that the people who signed this calling, they're all town and community councillors, town councillors as well, but they've had the same information exactly, but they chose not to be part of the sponsorship scheme. So it's a bit rich when they come forward now and say, we want time to consult now. When that time has been in place, we're still open to discussion with town and community councillors. We haven't closed the door, but we have to move on with a budget that I simply don't have. And to prolong the decision-making process means that I will have less and less money to support the toilets that we are keeping open. Simple as that. If they've got an alternative way of funding this, bring it forward.
We do have people online, so I'm going to change the running order slightly. So I've got Councillor Anne, then Cheryl.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just yesterday at Democratic Services Committee, we had a discussion about do we need to review scrutiny, and all members actually were completely agreed that we do need to strengthen scrutiny, not weaken it. And I think that takes me on to the meeting of scrutiny that we had last week. And from memory, I sat there and was part of it for 2.5 hours. It was a good debate. There was strong feeling, and I can sense strong feeling here amongst cabinet members and other members present. But very much as a result of that 2.5 hours discussion, more than 50% of the members there, i.e. 7, voted for a pause. And for pause, not for to be mischievous or to be delaying, but to enable proper consultation, because we have a duty to consult with our own members, and our own members have a duty to consult with our wards about something that is this significant. So I agree with Louise. I mean, as a result of the way we have done it, it has obviously shaken up a lot more interest, and there's been a lot more engagement. But in fairness, you know, town and community councils have only had this instruction from us halfway through the year that says we intend to close our toilets in the way that we have. I reduced them by 50% and reduced the 50% to just 6 monthly opening. Now, we have done that to them, not telling them in advance that that was the case. They're not able to have budgets in a row, just like we're not able to magic up money and magic up budgets. Now, my town council and me have been fully engaged with Gary Williams, representing the council, to actually look for solutions. But we need to actually understand that solutions and consultations and finding money, because the county council is not the only council that's struggling for money and that has to have budgets that they manage and plan for spending. So I think there's a huge amount of reasonableness, I would suggest, around the majority view of scrutiny members, that there should be a pause. It doesn't have to be long. I think I'm hearing that from the other members. For me, it's probably, I don't know, by the end of October, so that you've got at least some sensible consultation and potentially information about money that town councils can actually put together to look at being able to pick these up. Otherwise, what we're doing is we've breached our own protocol with our members that says we will liaise with them for things that go on with their ward, and also we're making unreasonable demands to expectations of town and community councils who really we want to work alongside. So for me, having a pause, say till the beginning of November, end of October, beginning of November, enables us to treat the town and community councils and other groups with respect, them to scrabble around for money that obviously now we are saying that will be required. And why would we refuse to have a pause? Because we're all on the same side here. We want to have as many toilets open for the residents and visitors of Conwy Council. So please listen to the voice of scrutiny and listen to the voice of reason. Thanks, Chair.
So I don't accept that engagement with town councils hasn't happened, because it's certainly not my experience in Abergele. What we were getting in Abergele was members saying, well, why are we doing it and nobody else is doing it? Well, you know, we did it because we thought it was important to do it. So I absolutely do not accept the town councils.
But can I come back on that, Charlie? Could I just come back just quickly?
Yeah.
I mean, I accept you might have done things differently in Abergele, and obviously you're the leader of this council and a member of Abergele Council. I understand all of that, but it's not my town council's experience that anybody came to them other than to say, we want 10% of the cost of us running our toilets. Will you help? And my town council fully engaged and said yes. And they didn't just say it to toilets; they said it to every other ask as well, which I think was about 18.5 grand for Pemamar Ward. So no problem, no hesitation. We want to partnership work with you. But then they heard nothing for 6 months. And then we actually imposed this closure both on the town and community councils and indeed us as members. Now, I don't think that's reasonable or fair. And obviously your own experience, it would appear, isn't replicated elsewhere. But, you know, my town council reacted and responded and then heard nothing. Just wanted to be clear about the reality of what's happening here, Charlie.
Okay, I mean, again, I don't have the details of that, to be fair, but obviously that's not the experience I have, but I totally get where you're coming from with it. I guess, members, yes, if we left it until October, you're looking at about £60,000 out of that budget. So there are consequences. You know, it's not consequence free. That will have to come from somewhere else or go on council tax. And we do need to be mindful of that. As officers have already said, mothballing does not preclude finding a solution to opening it again. I've got Cheryl, and then I've got Councillor Mandy online, and then back to Crystal.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you for letting me speak. Yeah, I can assure Councillor Gronway that the cross-party members who voted for this pause and the gap to try and find some more a good way forward, I'm quite sure we'll call in today's decision. As Councillor Anne said, scrutiny is very important. There was a 2.5-hour debate, and those members deserve to be listened to. They absolutely do. And on behalf of those residents with disabilities, they deserve to be listened to. So that was my comment on that. I've got a question for Councillor Gronway with my hat on as a councillor for Old Colwyn. I'm asking, will the toilets at Portharius that belong to Conway be opened up to replace the ones across the road there? Can I ask what's happening with that, as it's a council-owned building? Diolch.
The toilets in Portharius fall under the lease agreements with the operators in Portharius. They don't sit under the ERF, so I can't answer that question unless Gary has any further comments on that one.
So that's my understanding as well, that they are now part of the Bryn Williams at Portharius restaurant, not part of ours.
So if I could come back, so that's Conway owned building on our brand new prom that we can't make available to residents. That's an awful shame. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Mandy online, then Councillor Chris.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted really to come on. We've obviously all had the conversations in Frosk the other day. We all understand the importance, you know, of the toilets and needing to keep them open. I will say, as a town councillor, there was the communication from the town councils, you know, regarding toilets have been, you know, since I've been a councillor. And I think it was around about back in November when we got sent the list for the 10% ask, you know, on the toilets. As I said, my only point I made the other day is I think we just dropped the ball a little bit, you know, in regards to the last communication when we were told the same, you know, day as the public, you know, and I think if we'd have been told exactly what toilets they were that was closing, that would have given us a, you know, little bit more time. But we are where we are. And I'd like to thank the officers. I know I've been working with Gabby, you know, a lot myself, and businesses, you know, in trying to keep toilets open in my ward in Llandudno as a town councillor. And there's been some really good communications, you know, going on there. It's really, really important, and I understand that we say we have got toilets open in public buildings. The only thing is with the home, we haven't got one, you know, round the home. So all I'd actually say in regards to it, if you know there's been conversations happening with relevant businesses about the possibility of taking over toilets, where it could actually affect their business, you know, if they've got no toilets, I would actually say, can we go with the pause until the end of the month, you know, just to give them the opportunity that, you know, this isn't going to affect, you know, the business, because Gary will know what I'm talking about. You know, we have got businesses there that, you know, rely on, you know, these. But I will say, the same as I said the other day, yes, we need toilets, but as all different organisations have said, Age UK, you know, the Older People's Forum for Wales, Disabilities, the Welsh Government and all that, we have actually got to look at different ways of keeping these toilets open. You know, unless we're going to put the council tax up, you know, to a high amount, you know, to keep these toilets open, we need to look at other ways. And as I said, it is with these, you know, the town councils, community councils, businesses, and, you know, friends groups, which is what I can see is happening in certain parts now. So I'd just like to thank, you know, everyone, and just really ask that little bit of ask for those ones where it is going to affect, you know, business, because that's the only toilets they've got. Can we look at pausing, please? Thank you.
I thank Mandy. Councillor Chris.
Thank you, Leader. This has been to, as well as being to finance and resources overview and scrutiny, it's also been to economy and place. And I would like to just remind my fellow cabinet members of the Liz Roberts and Councillor Chris Hughes at Economy and Place were telling us about the journey since 2013. This has been on the cards. We've known that the toilet budget was being squeezed from that point onwards. So we've had budget reductions year after year. And I remember arranging with Ellen Edwards, who's a very good officer, sitting here this afternoon, and we arranged workshops with county councils concerning non-statutory provisions that we knew that Conway Council were going to have to withdraw from or reduce some of the funding towards. So I remember sitting in a workshop with Penmaenmawr Town Council, the mayor and the clerk, discussing the toilets in Penmaenmawr and how we could go forward to keep them open and how vital they were. And we did at that point have information about the usage and so on and the budget there. So this is nothing new, Leader. I must admit, I do get quite impatient when everyone says, oh, this has just landed on us just now, because it hasn't. It's been going on. We know that budgets have been reduced for the last 10, 15 years, and we're heading towards having to do these savings. And I don't want toilets to close. The two toilets, public toilets in my ward, Penryn Bay, closed about 15 years ago. We lost those. They were all bricked up and no longer used. It has left a gap in provision. So really, the plea for yet more delay, I'm afraid, we can't keep on putting this off. Either we're going to be serious and make some budget reductions to make some savings and have these serious negotiations to keep some of them open with all the stakeholders Mandy has just mentioned. I think we should go forward with this decision today and support the officers with what's been presented by the officers to us on all the different categories of toilets and so on, because this is a long list still of toilets that will be open and available. We're not closing all the toilets provision in the county. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. I've got Councillor Simon online, then Penny, then Nigel.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. I was just going to say it's a real shame we've got to do this, especially on the tourist areas, because it's all the money we've spent on tourism and promoting the town. It's no use at all if people come and there's no toilets available for kids. We've completely wasted our money. We've got to find some way to do it, to work around this. It's absolutely crazy. Thank you.
Councillor Penny.
Thank you, Leader. This obviously is a very emotional subject, isn't it? It's basic humane conditions for people, and we live in 2024, and we would hope that every small community can offer provision. But we are financially challenged as a council. Denbigh don't have any public conveniences at all. We in Conway County will have 51 open with certain concessions. We are closing 10 and we have a planned closure of 9. Now, as a town council since 2014 and a county council since 2017, I can guarantee all members of the public that these reports are open to your scrutiny. The letter went out that I was discussing earlier in the foyer with community-led leaders, went out on the 20th of the 11th. Llanfyddechan Town Council, as all town councils, are well aware of the contents of these letters. And I do find it slightly questioning when someone moves on to paddling pools, when all town councils, well, the 4 that are responsible for paddling pools with Conway Council, all have audit and governance groups to look at finances to how we can meet the costs, to help the tourists, to help individuals, to help children, to help everybody who wants to use them. I didn't stand for election to be held that I've closed a public toilet in Llanfyddechan. I haven't closed it, it's fallen in on itself. The brickwork is leaking, the roof is leaking, and it needs to be got rid of. It hasn't been open for the last 18 months. Have people complained? No, they haven't. They use the 2 cafes that are available. They use another toilet that's available in the community hall, the library when it's open, the food bank when it's open, the churches that are open, that now have all got toilets in since the ecclesiastical law changed that provision in 2016, because all people want to get married and have access to a toilet. Strange fact, but that's the case. And it's not a choice we are sitting here desperate to make. We have to balance the books. As Cabinet Lead for Adult and Community, Environmental Roads and Facilities, all elected members, you must realise that financially we are in a very difficult situation. And I find it very irresponsible when elected members who serve on committees can't see that our backs are against the wall, especially when most elected members, or a ratio from all elected parties, did attend the budget cutting groups and saw these specific items on the agendas. So yes, I'm very sorry that some of these toilets have to close, but like I said, the 10 that are closed possibly aren't even suitable for purpose. The cafes in Llandudno's have grown, and the pubs, by 55% since toilet blocks were built. We've moved on from the Edwardian Victorian age. We've moved on to 2024. We have libraries open, we have leisure centres open, and we have cafes and pubs that are open. And they don't stand at the door saying, are you going to buy a pint or do you want to use the loo? Thank you.
Right. Councillor Nigel, please.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Penny, for clarity as always. I have to say that, like Penny, I'm really, really disappointed when I hear elected members making comments like, where are the children and disabled people going to go when we have no toilets? Our county is awash with toilets. Town and Kimmel Bay, a tourist mecca, who regularly house in excess of 70,000 people during the day. We don't have any public conveniences. We have nice, warm, clean, well-maintained toilets, publicly accessible, in private businesses. And those businesses benefit from the clients who go in and use their toilets. It puts money in the economy, creates employment, but it's a different business model. And I'm really, really disappointed in the elected members when they try and hoodwink the public and give them misinformation for political gain. And it's, to be honest, it's outrageous. The toilets have been under review for over a decade, and these elected members know that. And if they don't, then they're not fit for purpose. Thank you, Leader.
Thanks, Ida. Yeah, this is really an emotive subject. Everyone should be able to go to the loo wherever they want, really. I do find it quite difficult that a lot of our public toilets, if they were built now, they'd be in a lot better condition, a lot different condition than they currently are. I've got little ones. Using public toilets can sometimes be a bit of a nightmare. But when they need to go to the loo, they can't wait in a queue to buy a coffee. They need to go to the loo right now. So I do appreciate the argument of we can't always go to businesses and use those toilets. That said, we sit here today in a pretty horrendous financial position, as local authorities have been across the rest of Wales and the UK, where we've seen councils going bankrupt in England already last year. We've already seen that happen. There are a threat of a lot more that's going to happen. And there are numerous councils, including ourselves in Wales, that are in a very, very difficult financial position. If we don't balance the budget and the commissioners come in to the council, they go through the process, because I'm not sure everyone is aware of this, but the process is they will go through what we have now, what we are delivering, and what's statutory and what's not. Public conveniences are not statutory. My worry is if we do not balance the budget, the commissioners will come in and we'll have a look at what our toilet provision is. Our toilet provision is non-statutory, and we are providing a lot of non-statutory provision. Now, we can argue about whether the toilet should or shouldn't be non-statutory, but at the end of the day, that's the law that we're dealing with, and they're not. Now, when they come in, they can just close all the public toilets and that's it. So we have to find a solution to this. I don't believe that it should be one or the other. I don't believe that we should either have public toilets or not have public toilets. And I'm really, really thankful to the officers who are working incredibly hard with community groups, with town councils, to try and find solutions. I've had meetings with Gary and Gerard myself over the last couple of weeks for some specific toilets. And I'm really pleased to say that those meetings are really positive, and we should be able to find some solutions to some of these toilets if everyone pulls together. But I think Councillor Mandy mentioned at Frosk last week, this isn't the public really don't care who pays for the loos. They just want to use a toilet. And I don't see anyone, tourist or members of our residents, saying, well, before they go to the loo, can someone tell me who's paying for this? They just want to use the toilet. So it's really good that we're having these conversations and we're exploring around this, what we can do to save as many as we can. But we have to take this with the background that if we don't make cuts and if we don't do this, we could lose all our public toilets. And that's just the facts. That's the bare bones of what we're dealing with here. And I do not want to be in a position where we're having to close all the public toilets because commissioners have come in and said we can't balance the budget. So we've got to think about that. And the ones that we are offering, that Councillor Aaron has said, that are additional to what we have been, these are all staffed toilets. They're safer, they're lit, and we want to make sure. What I don't want to do is a paper exercise to say, okay, let's keep all these toilets open, and then actually, realistically, in a few months' time, they're closed due to vandalism, because that's not helping people in any way, shape or form. We need to be really real about the actual toilet opening. So if we're being able to offer toilets that are better quality, they're safer, and they're in a place where we are able to offer more of those toilets for a longer period of time and sustainably. Councillor Ann questioned quite rightly at the last FROSC about the service transformation and have we got a programme where we can pull all that together? And it's a really good point. We do need to have that document so we can see everything that's going on around the council. But surely part of that is being able to provide sustainable services and not services that we can just keep for a month, 2 months. Where do we stop with it? We need to be changing the way we're doing things so that we can provide toilets for a lot longer period of time until the end of October.
Please, I'll bring you back in this time. Yep.
I have a suggestion because I think we're getting towards the end of this debate. I asked for more time, not a lot more time. And I think Mandy also asked for a bit more time. Was it Anne who said end of October? The reality is, if the decision goes against scrutiny today, then we will do our best to call the decision in, which means politically, for those that are unaware at the back, that it would have to come back to Cabinet, which I believe would be the next Cabinet meeting, which would be early October. And so between that time, there's not a lot really that we can that you can do with closing toilets. So why don't we forget all of that? And let's have a little bit more time. You've got a Labour councillor, Conservative councillor, an independent councillor, cross-party saying, can you just halt any closure of toilets till the 31st of October? Because mothballing a toilet is going to take time, and it'd be crazy to mothball them in the next couple of weeks and then to reopen them a few weeks later. Can we have that little bit more time? As you don't go against the scrutiny's decision, you've given us that little bit more time to the 31st of October. Would that be a consideration rather than going through the call-in procedure, rather than being back here in Cabinet on mid-October? Would that be a possibility, Leader?
I think where do you want that 60 grand to come from, Louise? Do you want to come from an existing budget, or do you want to add that onto the council tax bill? Because we have to be clear about this. It is a substantial sum of money.
It's always going to be tight with budgets, and I appreciate that comment. But if you give us the time, and particularly with the town and community councils, the conversations I've been having and Mandy's been having with local businesses, we could end up helping you out, not just on keeping things open all year round, but actually taking on the toilets completely. So next year you find that the town councils are funding toilets that even now you're beginning to fund seasonally. So we're trying to help you out. It's been a bit of a nightmare with the consultation, but we are where we are, and I just want some more time. I don't want to mothball a toilet, then 2 weeks later having to unmothball it.
But you'll accept that's what we do with our seasonal toilets. We do it for the whole winter. So it's not a process that we're on a not used to doing. It is £60,000. Now, is that coming from the ERF budget, or do you want to add that to overspend, which comes out of reserves, or do we add it to council tax next year? These are the difficult decisions we have to make, and I don't think it's fair to ask that service who've brought forward proposals, who've confirmed that if we mothball something, there's still the opportunity to open up again, that we need to be clear where that money's coming from, because I don't think it's fair to that service otherwise.
Well, again, it's about priorities, and obviously we voted against the budget in March, and the closure of the toilets and reduction of toilet hours was one of the reasons we didn't vote for it.
Well, again, I've watched those meetings. The budget working group, it wasn't raised. It came twice to scrutiny. The toilet closures wasn't raised, and it wasn't raised during the council meeting. What was raised time and time again was our council tax was too high, and we need to do more to bring that down. That's what was raised. Now, these people are really upset, and I appreciate that, because you're losing a facility that you really want. And we are only here because of financial reasons. That's it. And I keep saying time and time again, we've lost over 100 million from our budget from central government, and nobody seems to listen. It's always, we're stupid, we're idiots, we don't care about facilities. We care passionately about those facilities. But the reality of our budget is that that money is gone. And it either goes in council tax, or we try and change the way we're doing it. I'm absolutely right. We need to look at new ways of doing things. We need to support our libraries by increasing footfall into those. We need to support our leisure centres by encouraging people to go and see those. This is different ways of delivering what people want. I absolutely accept if there's a particular area you go and there's a particular toilet you want to use, then that's a loss to you. I absolutely accept that. In the whole east of the county, from Colwyn Bay until Rill, there are 2 public toilets, but there's Tesco, there's Nasda, there's leisure centres that we use, and we do fine with that. There aren't any out in the hills and the SSIs. I accept that. But we are not talking about closing all public toilets. We're talking about closing some. And whilst I appreciate that's difficult, that is going to be £60,000 that is unaccounted for, which will have to be found somewhere. We have seen the service got, we were unhappy about the lack of weeding because we saved 20, 30k but not spraying twice. Well, this is double that amount of money. And I think it's only fair that not that you actually say where you want that money to come from, because if we mothball them, we can open them again. If we carry on till October, we're just, for me, kicking the can down the road, and it's costing us another £60,000. So, you know, are we asking for that money to come out of ERF's budget?
Listen to all the comments, and I take on board the views, heartfelt views by many people. Now, I'm a month away from being 74. I have my own toilet needs. I have health issues. But I am fully aware that I want the best service we can for our residents of Conway by keeping old toilets open longer than necessary. We have 5, and the unmanned toilets that we have over 900 incidents of vandalism, which is making the provision unsustainable. I believe provision in modern buildings that we are offering with libraries and everywhere else. I went for a cup of tea lunchtime to the culture centre in Conway. They're fantastic toilets there. They're open to the public. You know, we are trying to offer, I want to be a cabinet member that's proud of toilets that are fit for purpose, not maintaining old, out-of-date toilets that are simply not sustainable. And I'm more than happy to work with any community council that wants to come forward with their own ideas, and we are doing that. But a pause will mean that those people coming forward are going to say, right, we'll wait until the council makes a decision. So the ones that have shown interest now are waiting for us to make a decision. I believe, and I'm recommending that we continue with our strategy, mindful of the fact that the scrutiny asked for a pause, but that pause will only put off the inevitable and will cost us substantial money. You know, I've got it's not just toilets within my portfolio. We've got playing fields, we've got sports equipment, we've got leisure, we've got the playgrounds. All those things are in jeopardy. I'm struggling to maintain those. To find another £60,000 for a pause is totally unacceptable, in my opinion, when that money can be better spent on continuing with delivering the strategy as we are. So I would move that we reject the call for a pause from scrutiny and we move forward with the strategy.
Councillor Jeff?
I'd support that, Leader, completely. I would also suggest, in fact, that if there is an opportunity for those bodies that want to actually discuss the extension of the opening of the toilets, that they do that with Gary tomorrow morning onwards. There's nothing to say they don't have to wait till the end of October or beginning of December or next week. I don't know what the cost would be, but certainly as far as we're concerned, we have a massive budget deficit to meet. We have a responsibility to meet that. We don't have a responsibility to provide toilets throughout. That's evident from what has happened in Denbighshire, where they've shut all the toilets. I've had a closure of my toilet in the rural area for the last 15 years. The building remains. We've had toilets closed in Ivy Street in Colwyn Bay for as long as I can remember, probably 10 or 12 years. So there are toilets already closed. The problem is that the buildings remain, and I agree with Councillor Paul. We need an action plan that says, in fact, that we move these properties on. There's nothing to say that we couldn't provide new toilets, modern toilets, ones in fact which are fit for this generation and not for what was gone past in past years. So I would support the motion and second it.
Mr. Cromie, Frost say that there are new facilities going in with the kiosk. Is it possible to?
To the Cayley Promenade works, there are two new toilets part of the concessions that we've been offering in the new kiosk. Those are being built as we speak. They're being built off site. They will be in situ by the spring of next year, and there will be toilet provisions in those two. And in the meantime, Gary is already speaking with existing people, existing businesses in the community to look at the public toilets that we own on that site in any case. So we are talking continuously to people that want to be involved, and the door is open. So I don't see the need for a pause in what we're doing at all, and other than an unnecessary cost.
One more speaker online, and then I think we need to bring this to conclusion. Councillor Carr.
Yeah, thank you very much, Charlie. Yeah, we had a meeting at the Bay of Colwyn Town Council last night, and one of the issues that were brought up, and I brought it up in the scrutiny committee, was disabled toilets and that provision that's very important for disabled people, or not just visitors, but also our own residents. So, you know, I would like some clarification on that. That have we had thoroughly thought through how we're going to maintain the provision for disabled people? Thank you.
I think it's a case in point, isn't it? We have amazing facilities in Coypetla with a hoist and a lift, and we need to make people more aware that those facilities are there. These are really difficult decisions, but the actual numbers of toilets we're talking about have increased. It's not where you want them, possibly. I accept that, and it's about choice, isn't it? We have a limited budget. We have to sustain what we've got. We do not want to end up in a situation where we have no toilets. If members want to call it in, then they need to be aware that that's taking further money from that budget. Further work to kind of open those facilities does not preclude this mothballing. So there is an opportunity to carry on working. I absolutely recognise that the 2-hour gap informing members wasn't enough. Obviously, there were some reasons behind that, but that wasn't enough. But it was 6 weeks ago. So there's been a considerable shift in the last 6 weeks. And again, what we can achieve over the next 6 weeks might solve some of the issues that members of the public have got. But we do have a limited budget. That service had an 11.3% cut last year, and we voted for that. Not everybody voted for that, I accept that, but we had to have a balanced budget. So we're in a very, very difficult situation, and I do apologise to the public. You've come 3 times to meetings. I appreciate your passion about it. Nobody wants to be in this position. But nobody wants to be in this position. We will continue to try and find solutions. But we've had a proposer and a seconder that we go ahead, and we note, let me get phrase this right. We note the amendments from scrutiny, but we don't agree with them, that we proceed with the policy as previously approved. So we've had a proposer and a seconder. Members, can we show over in favour of that, please? Okay, thank you, members. So, members of the
Chair,
public.
can you clarify what the vote was, please? Thanks.
It was unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, members of the public, I apologise that it's not what you wanted. You're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but if you'd like to leave now, we'll give it 5 minutes until you're ready to go. Thank you. Thank you, members. So, as I mentioned before, there was an urgent item. So we'll take that item now. It's procedural notices for land at Budlawn Deb offices. So I've got, that's a misprint. It's a supplement on pages 2 to 7. It's essentially a procedural item, members. You will be aware that Scrutiny and Cabinet approved on the 13th of August preferred bidder for this site. But Cabinet needs to make an explicit approval that we declare the open spaces which are surplus to be disposed of and make such statutory notices to enable members of the public to comment on it. So there's no change to what we're proposing. It's just about going out to consultation. So the recommendations 2.1 are the Cabinet agrees to declare surplus parcels of land shaded in blue on the attached plan, which you'll find Appendix 1, and to authorise the placing of a public notice pursuant to Section 1232A of the Local Government Act 1972 in respect of the leasehold disposal of those lands which adjoin the Budlawn Deb offices. 2.2, that any objections and representations which might be received in response to the advertisement be considered by Cabinet prior to the Council progressing to complete the legal agreement with the preferred bidder. And 2.3, that should no objections or representations be received in response to the advertisement, that the Cabinet, declares the land surplus. So it's a procedural thing to go out and consult. I'm happy to move 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3. Also happy to take any questions, comments or observations. Shan, online.
Thank you for letting me speak. I just wanted to say, because it's in a public meeting now in the public domain, could we have assurances that the public have the right ways down the lanes, because that's what constant question is, and they have access to all of the areas, the lanes, the paths and the public right of ways. And also their parking areas. There's a bit of misunderstanding in the public of that the car park is going, but they still think that the area behind the building is free for parking, but obviously it won't be. So can that just be clarified so that the public understand exactly what they can access and what parking that will be there? Thanks.
Blethen, could you come in with that, please?
Of course I can. So in terms of the rights to be granted out of the lease, they are contained in, I think it's Appendix 2 of the plan, which has obviously done the rounds in terms of the project board, FROSC, Cabinet, and that will then be made public as well. So in terms of Appendix 1, as you see it, shows the rights by foot and rights by car. So hopefully that will answer that question, Councillor Shan. And in terms of car parking, there won't be any, in terms of any rights retained for the public to kind of park there. But one of the things that we are looking to include within the legal agreement is potentially for the pay and display car park on Saturdays and Sundays, for that to be open to the public as a pay and display. But that is still subject to discussion. Nothing will be signed, sealed and delivered until which time we complete the legal agreements.
Okay, Shan.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Grummy.
Maybe Mr. Blethen. I've got the map up in front of me, but the different areas that are shaded, obviously looking outside, there's quite a few areas where there are bushes and trees that need maintaining. Will that be come under the responsibility of the new owners, or will that still fall to open spaces to maintain those elements?
So everything within the plan, which is you could either look at Appendix 1 or Appendix 2. So there's a red line plan. Everything within the red line plan will be the responsibility of the new landlord, which will be the preferred bidder.
Okay, thank you for that
clarification.
No thank you.
Okay, members. So, Nigel. Right. Okay, so we've had a proposer and a seconder. Can we show in favour of accepting it, members? Okay, thank you very much. So, agenda item 7 is announcements by the leader. I have nothing at this time. Announcement by the Chief Executive. Agenda item 9 is review the Cabinet Forward Work Programme. It's on pages 120 to 148. Members, any questions, observations? If not, can we show in favour of accepting the Forward Work Plan? Penny? Yeah. Okay, that's fine. So agenda item 10 sits within my portfolio. It's a resilience plan, which you'll find on pages 149 to 167. Members will be acutely aware of the challenging financial situation we've faced in the last couple of years. We know Conwy receives unfavourable settlements and compared to our neighbours, but it's absolutely vital that we do everything we can to make sure we run our services as efficiently as we can. October 23, we invited the Welsh Local Government Association to do a peer review, which was a fairly superficial exercise. They didn't see any smoking guns in terms of how we spend our monies, but we wanted to go a bit deeper, essentially. You know, we talk about a 114 and what that would mean, and they would come in and do X, Y, and Z. So we were the first council to invite CIPFA, who is the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy. They are the body that will go in and take over a council which is able to set a balanced budget. We wanted to know essentially what decisions they would make and what they would do. They've got a huge amount of expertise in terms of benchmarking with other councils. It's quite often within councils, I think, you can get quite insular and it's just Conwy and what we're doing. So it's really important for me that we see, we get external eyes on what we're doing. That has now fed in. We had from the peer review, we had a plan in inverted commas. The CIPFA work has been really useful in that it's given us sort of much more data to actually look at our services, look at our charges, and look at where we need to make changes. In a huge amount of work going on behind the scenes. Like to Amanda and Gareth for the work that's been done. If we go to Appendix 1, you'll see there's actually 34 separate actions there, which I think gives you a flavour for the amount of detail we're going in. We have to leave no stone unturned in ensuring that we're doing things to the most efficient way that we can. Many of these have been completed. Some are still ongoing, and some will remain ongoing. But for those where there's clear completion dates is when we expect to have some clarity. And this will be invaluable for us in sort of meeting the challenge of the £20 million that we're facing this year. And in terms of transformation, as well as trying to identify areas where we can make meaningful change, where we can continue to deliver the services that our residents want. But it's rather than just salami slicing bits of every year budget that we can make really, really meaningful changes. So it was presented to scrutiny. I think it was well received by members. There were no further recommendations for us, but I'm sure that there's lots there that members would like to discuss. So I'll open it up for conversation and then we'll take it from there. Just bring the chief exec in, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. And just to emphasise, I think there's a lot of work that's gone on behind this document. It's been, I think I mentioned in Frosk, I think we started the initial discussions with CIPFA in January, following a few presentations in December. So it is, you know, a plan that's been taking quite a while to bring to fruition. But it gives the framework, and I think I should emphasise, it gives the framework for to bring things forward to members to consider. But we know, you know, the previous item, how difficult it is, and there are difficult choices to be made. But this gives us the framework. I would also add that following comments from Councillor Anne Frosk, I think a really good suggestion. It was something that we had discussed around bringing the transformation, different elements of transformation together, because there is a lot going on across different services at the moment, trying to rationalise, look at the way we operate, look at different ways of operating. So we will look to bring that forward, and Councillor Emily just confirmed that earlier in the meeting as well. So we'll certainly work on that, and we can, as Amanda said, we can add that into the plan here before. But just my personal thanks as well to Amanda and Gareth, because it's been a lot of work to get to this point. So diolch yn fawr.
Councillor David online, is that a legacy hand or did you want to speak?
Yeah, thank you for letting me speak, Chair. Yeah, it's just that I'm a bit sort of disappointed, all these references, and I know Councillor Paul regularly makes references. This 114, I think we can maintain statutory services and we can maintain essential frontline services. It's all these things, and I could send you a list, and I probably will, all these things we do that are not essential, and they're the things that we need to cut or we need to look at again. Then we won't be in danger of a 114. So let's be clear about that. It's not maintaining essential services. It's not maintaining statutory services that's putting us within the radar of 114. It's doing all these things that I've mentioned. I'm not going to go through them now because I've mentioned them quite a number of times. The things that we do that are very nice that we don't have to do, and they're the things we should be looking at rather than constantly saying, "Oh yeah, you know, if we don't cut this or we don't cut this essential service, then we're going to get a 114." So, you know, I think we need to be mindful of that, Chair. Thanks for letting me speak. Thank you.
You know, thanks, David. As finance portfolio, if you could put those in a list and send them to me, that would be really, really appreciated, because, you know, clearly none of us want to be in this situation. I know you did email last year, and I did ask you to send it to me, but I never received it. But yeah, any suggestions from any member are gratefully received. Councillor Grunway.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. And I welcome the report and the hard work that's gone into this by Amanda and the team. I think it's an excellent report. And at the end of the day, if we fail to plan, we plan to fail. Simple as that. And this is the start of a plan. And along tied to the transformation strategy that we're working on as well, there's the way that we will be able to go forward and try our best to deliver what is a sustainable service for the residents of Conway. So this is the plan to set the scene, and then this is the start of the journey. We need now to take that plan forward in a constructive way, and I would fully endorse the recommendation.
Great, thanks, Cormac. Councillor Paul. Paul, could you stick your mic on, please? Sorry.
Thank you for letting me speak. Charlie, you remind us at every meeting, and quite appropriately, that the UK government and the Welsh government have not and are not going to allocate to Conway or any local authorities great swathes of taxpayers' money over the next period. We all know that. We can complain about it. Some people say we whinge about it, but we can complain about it as much as we like. We're not going to get great allocations of taxpayers' money. You also quite appropriately challenge councillors, and it's absolutely right that you do. If you don't want to make this cut, are you prepared to vote for the council tax increase? Do you want it to be taken out of reserves? Do you want to increase a service charge? And that is, again, a quite appropriate challenge to any councillor. Now, I tend to always say, if I want something doing, we should either increase council tax or we should cut something somewhere else. And I'm usually specific about that. And the issue I've been banging on about since I was elected was probably one of the biggest inefficiencies in this council, which is the 3,000 unfilled school places. We, unlike some local authorities in Wales, are not proactively tackling this. And why I say that is because there's been very little detailed work done. I anticipate for 2025-26 that there will be more school cuts. I actually argued last year that we should cut more from school budgets, but that we should use some of that money to tackle the unfilled school places problem by further amalgamation, federation, and some school closures. That was rejected. That's the democratic process. And I do understand that we've moved a little in the 2 years. I've been banging on about this. And we are now going to amalgamate the remaining junior and infant schools. And this will provide us with a modest saving, but it is only a modest saving. And of course, these junior infant schools that we're amalgamating, which I support, two are in my own community, these are not the schools with the 10% and more unfilled school places that the Auditor General and Welsh Government say we should try and work towards. Only 10% unfilled school places in any particular school. I am grateful for this because, in part, if we amalgamate these schools, we take out the problem that we had with the school funding formula, where junior schools suffered relative to other primary schools because of the funding for the foundation stages. So it's a positive that in the next 12 months there'll be controversial, but we will amalgamate those final junior infant schools, and that is a positive. But in my view, and this will mean paying more council tax or cutting budgets, and I would argue one or the other will need to take place, because we will need some capital funding over the next few years to tackle the unfilled places, so that we federate more, we amalgamate more. There will be some school closures. And if you read the Welsh press, this is happening throughout Wales and the 22 local authorities. And the reason this is being argued by me is a Section 114 commissioner, which we keep on talking about. If they came to Conway, they would say a significant inefficiency is your unfilled school places. And we haven't asked SIPFA about it. Don't know why we haven't asked about it. I was personally disappointed that Estin didn't raise it as an issue. But again, as people know, I do think some of these bodies, I call it producer capture. They have their own agendas, and they don't always acknowledge the hard realities. And the hard realities in Conway, if we do not make more progress on this, school budgets will continue to be cut, because Welsh government, UK government, they're going to allocate a bit more money. Even today, they said they are going to allocate money to pay for the increase in teachers' pay, which was agreed to today. But that's not going to solve this problem. We definitely, as a local authority, in our resilience plan, need to tackle the problem of unfilled school places. We cannot delay it anymore.
I don't disagree with the challenge ahead. I do disagree that we're not doing anything, Paul. I know you want us to move faster than we are. I'll just update, there is a piece of work going on about the funding formula, about the data for each individual schools, because I think that's slightly oversimplistic in terms of what it would cost to make change. So I'll bring the chief executive, because he's much more intelligent than me.
I wouldn't go as far to say that, but I think, yeah, I understand the point you make, Councillor Paul, and you have raised it before. I guess from my point of view, the data collection is the important part of the equation here, and that work, I think, as Amanda mentioned in Frosk, actually, around the working group that's come together, is looking at the finances in more detail. And actually, the most important part of that is data. Where are the pressure points? Why are they there? And we need to understand that, really, to formulate a solution to the problem. And I think that working group it's in its infancy. I would say it hasn't been established for that long. But I completely appreciate the point that's being made, and certainly at some point that data will filter through back onto into the democratic process. So, okay,
I've got Councillor Nigel, the chairman, then Councillor Anne online.
Yeah, thank you, Leader, and thanks to Amanda for this report. What am I going to say? Anyway, the report highlights the work that's been undertaken so far and what is to be completed. It's not a silver bullet, Charlie, but it gives us direction and will only help improve the council's sustainability long term and stave off that 114, which we're all feared for. So, yeah, thank you, Amanda, for the report.
Councillor Anne?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. As I said at Frosk, I welcome a resilience plan that's got some clarity and some timescales about it. I think you mentioned, Chair, that Amanda had certainly said she would investigate some of the additions that I suggested. One that I'm particularly keen to sort of get perhaps Cabinet's view and your own view, which is that we have some external advisor to help us look at our education expenditure, because it's our biggest cost, is it not? And I think from what I understand, Amanda's saying to date that we've actually had SIPFA as an expert advisor around all of the other services. So I'd really be pleased to hear your views about, are we going to be engaging some external independent consultant to help us evaluate education? Because I don't think it is just about unfilled places. I mean, that's part of an issue, stroke of concern. So just a bit of comment on that. And then the second point I'd say, I mean, I have banged on, if that's the right phrase, about us having a transformation plan for too many years, I think. So it is good to see it written down. But my concern is that it was written down in the peer review action plan. And I think that was about nearly 12 months ago. And it said that we would actually had a timescale for that, of doing that by March 2024. Clearly that's come and gone. And therefore, in the resilience plan on page 141, it's mentioned that that will now, I think, be March 2025. So all of a sudden, we've slipped and lost a year. I mean, for me, energy, pace, and delivery in the right way, using the right process is really important. So what assurances can you give Charlie and Emily that we won't see slippage in this? Because I think we need it established and we need it to be romping ahead, really, given the financial position we find ourselves in. Thanks.
I think I'll take the second part first. And I think you're right that, you know, we do need to accelerate this, but I think there are some unknowns here. When you look at something, you realize it's maybe a bigger piece of work that you'd anticipated. One door can open up many, many doors. So I think there will be areas where further work is needed and dates will slip. So the other issue with schools is we do need to get that data about our funding. We know on a Welsh level, we are the 7th highest per capita funding for schools out of the 22 local authorities, but that statistic by itself is slightly meaningless in some respects because we're a rural county and we've got schools all over the place. So we do need to do a deep drill into that. There's complexities within the funding formula about sort of leisure centres and usage that I could really do with understanding better about making sure that is fair. So that will be a piece of work. And I guess leading on from that, it would be, you know, is this something we can assess ourselves and process ourselves, or do we need external help to look at it? So I think that's maybe something that I have to keep an open mind on at the moment. But I think data and actual proper facts in anything we do is absolutely critical. And this, I think, will hopefully drive us to that position where we're making decisions based on facts and real facts, you know, drilling down on statistics rather than just saying we're 7th in Wales, which is good because we're in terms of our funding, we're 14th, you know, on paper that looks quite good, but we need to know the specific detail, and I guess for every school and how that affects those pupils in those schools and ensure it's fair, because I complain all the time about our funding voting. We should ensure that each school is funded fairly as well. So yeah, it's something I think that will need to evolve as we go along. And I know that's not a direct answer, but I think it's a sort of honest one as to where we're at the moment, if that's okay.
And if I could just come back, I mean, our own funding flexibility is something that I welcome you committing to, because I think from own work that I've done and shared with Amanda, it actually is quite concerning, the amount of unfairness, alleged unfairness, apparent unfairness that's inexplicable. I mean, some of it is explicable because we know all schools are different, as you've just said. So the quicker that we can get on with that particular work, because as we've got to the bone now and the bone marrow of schools, to coin the phrase the audit used when they were trying to stave off any cuts, I think we're at that sort of stage with schools. So it might not be that we're using the money efficiently, and therefore it's really important that we actually get under the bones of that to provide fairness to all schools. So there's a level playing field, allowing for appropriate flexibilities, and I'm not sure we're anywhere near that at the minute. So if that could be expedited, it would make me very happy. Thanks.
Always my ambition to make you happy, and if I can, but I totally agree with you. Flippancy aside, I think it is something that we do need to work through as quickly as possible. I've got Councillor Gromway.
Yeah, thank you. And I think the point that Anne has made is not the point that a lot of us have made over the years, because in my many years as a councillor, I've never understood the finances of education, because it's such a complex field, especially with schools holding the majority of the budget in any case. I think a piece of work by SIF certainly would help me hopefully have a better understanding of how and where the 100 million plus of education funding actually goes. We have 14,000 children to educate, so it does beg the question: what is the additional costs of educating? Because for 14,000, the average cost of 4,000 per term would be about 50 million. So that is the other 50 million. How is that allocated across the education field, it'd be really good to understand that.
Okay, so very much a work in progress, members, and I think we recognise that. So there are two recommendations. There's that progress against the original peer review action plan be noted, and the second part is that the new resilience plan be approved. That was the recommendations from Cabinet. I'm happy to move that. Can we have a seconder, please? Councillor Penny, can we show we're in favour? Members, okay, diolch pawb. So agenda item 11, so it's an integrated adult community services portfolio. It's the role and profile of social work, including sustainability of the workforce. You'll find that report on pages 168 to 199. I'll hand over to Councillor Penny, who's going to take us through this report.
Thank you, Leader. So as stated, this is the role and profile of social work, including sustainability of the workforce. This report has been brought to scrutiny by Service Director Jenny Williams, and this is the first time such a report has actually been on the Forward Work programme, and that sort of stresses the importance of such a report. And it's been to scrutiny, and it was debated in scrutiny, which was on the 4th of the 9th, 24. And I'd like to thank councillors for introducing it, because I unfortunately couldn't be there at that scrutiny. As you all know, Jenny has been Service Director for 10 years at Conway and has never had to bring such a report to members. Jenny has a statutory responsibility to ensure that there are enough social workers and associated support workers in place. Frontline social care provision is discussed in all scrutiny committees, in all corporate risk documents, and it has overall responsibility falls within the social care provision to take care of our Conway Council residents, Conway County residents. The social worker plays a critical role in that link and is central to this delivery of care to ensure safety of all our residents. Social work is a registered role. It's continually professional development, and as a local authority, we need to ensure that it's given enough time to be developed for each social worker to be able to, each social worker to be allowed to perform at their top level. We need to make sure that all social workers employed by the authority are given appropriate resources to fully carry out their role on behalf of our residents. Social workers must be able to carry out assessments due to need of this, and this is why the Wellbeing Act of 2014 was implemented. We are all aware of budgetary pressures, but there is a statutory requirement that an assessment must be fit for purpose for any individual. So I think it's appropriate we now stop using the term of, are we offering a gold standard or a silver standard? We are meeting the requirements as set out in the Social Wellbeing Act of 2014. The national picture is included in the report at 3.2 and gives a highlight of the number of social workers in Wales. There is a projection of needing 350 social workers every year to meet demand and case ratios. Local authorities, as we all know, are the main employers of social workers. Like in all professions, to increase, a bank of social workers are now on the increase, and that's not necessarily a good variable. We all need continuity in our care. We have our GPs that are they're called locums, aren't they? We use the Latin term for doctors. But if we use bank for social workers, then there is a turnover, and it's not necessarily a continuity of our most vulnerable. There is a place for agency social workers, but sometimes that always isn't very effective in such a large organisation as Conway. Looking at Conway data, currently 107 social workers are employed between children and adults. We do have more social workers in adult services due to the higher need that falls within that area. Vacancy rates go up and down. Over the years, national interventions have had to take place due to retention and recruitment of social workers. The data across the decade just show pressure, which is going to increase and has slowly increased. Vacancy rates are higher in children's services, which is not unusual, but it's higher than it was in the previous year. I'm sure members, we all know that post-COVID has had an impact on society, and as such has had an impact on social workers. People are reevaluating their lives and looking at what options are available to them, and they're considering their options. So in the last few years, we have lost a lot of experienced social workers due to a host of reasons. Agency 3.4, table 4, looks at small numbers, but when we have a lot of it, it can impact on clients. Sickness absence is quite easily noticed on table 5. And the reasons why there is sickness, and I think we have to move away again from labels, it's stress. Stress has become a sort of very common word that covers a host of reasons. It's work stress, it can be personal stress, it can be personal resilience, it can be a locus of self-control, it can be stress around your location, it can be stress around your caseload, it can be stress around your client group. And all social workers have personal lives. I know when I used to work with a social work team, everyone used to say, the team leader would say, leave your personal lives at the door. That's extremely hard to do so. So stress, I think, needs to be unpacked slightly more, what the reasons are and why people feel so lost, because we all know what stress is like. Caseloads of assessment are difficult to quantify, but the average caseloads are 16 cases per qualified social worker. But if somebody goes off with stress, quite often, then a case is put with that social worker to see if help can be made. Managers and directors obviously have their hands and very closely on the caseloads, the caseworkers, the case notes, on the responsibility that at the end of the day is due to that person who signs at the bottom of the line of the case notes. Safeguarding is a very small team to ensure individuals are looked after. I mean, I remember when Rhiannon came into Safeguard, I think it was 2016, and she has been able to move loads and loads and loads of issues forward. They're also now advocates, or they're champions to people who are in positions of trust, police, health workers, hospital workers, where allegations are made. So their role is continually developing and evolving. I think it's important, members, that I stress, as well as Jenny stressed, it's not an alarmist report, but clearly sets out the responsibility the Director's Service has, and also the levels that function effectively and efficiently in this area. We move to workforce planning, which is reduced when we are under budgetary pressure. If we reduce our workforce planning, we reduce our ability to go out and recruit. We know, coming from social care professionals, that there's lots of pathways into social work. We use Grow Our Own on all services provision. We work with HE, we work with FE, and I know we have individuals coming forward who've done Open University. We need to increase numbers about how we create our training opportunities, and maybe this is a good time to look at the actual process and progression route for individuals who want to go into social work. Another very important factor I must close with is that pay and progression. There isn't a national pay network for social workers. There's one for teachers, there's one for nurses, but not for social workers. And this is something that I think is going to be looked at, hopefully, in the very near future. There is no information on protected characteristics due to diverse workforce, but I know Jenny is hot on the trails of this, and she will bring a report as soon as she is able to. Leader, that is my very confused report, and I hope there was some pearls of wisdom in it. There are 5 recommendations. Shall I read them out, or?
Let's open up discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, we can look at 2.1 through 2.5. No, thank you for taking us through that. It's an excellent report. Any questions, observations, Councillor Gronway?
Thank you, Penny, for an excellent report. And this is a challenging service, and obviously retaining and recruiting staff has always been a challenge. This is not just a Conway problem, obviously, it's a national problem. Now, my eldest granddaughter has just started this week in Technical College on a social work course, and the question I was at, what are the opportunities of offering apprenticeships? Is there a national scheme? Can we make more use of apprenticeships through national programs? I think we knew that's the best way to learn is on the job, as far as I'm concerned. And if we can offer apprenticeships, I think that is a positive way forward. Perhaps Penny has. I've looked at through the report. I must have missed it, but we must be doing some work with apprenticeships.
Take up, Penny.
Thank you very much, Leader. Thanks, Councillor Gronway. Yes, apprenticeship, social work is it's a protected qualification. It takes 6 years, 7 years to train up. Apprenticeships are really useful, and I know they've been used in Llandrithlow College to get individuals engaged in the caring profession, engaged in all the policies, and engaged at where their role is to go on placement, and then they can build on that. There are foundation degree at social work, and sometimes if you achieve enough qualifications in your level 3 qualification, you can, if you're over a certain age, then progress onto the social work traineeship or qualification.
Thank you, Penny.
Kat, Jenny, good afternoon. Have I said that correctly, or would you like to contradict my words of wisdom?
Absolutely not. Thank you, and thanks, Penny, for your very comprehensive introduction, and diolch Granwy am geiriau chi hefyd. No,
Thank you,
I
Granwy,
think,
for your words as well.
without wanting to sort of make the report too detailed, we do have a really comprehensive we call it our grow our own strategy. We've had trainee social work because for a long time, I was one actually, so a very long time ago. And I think it's always about looking at different ways and different opportunities to create those experiences, whether they're, as you say, actually from the workplace perspective or through graduate routes. And I am delighted, and if you've seen my LinkedIn post, a bit too enthusiastic, I think, to share that we've had the sort of approval to progress with 2 graduate social work positions, which again is something a little different and unique for us. And I know as a council we want to move into graduate development, so that's a really interesting opportunity for anybody with any sort of relevant degree to come forward, and that is then an opportunity that you will get to qualify within 2 years. So it's quite a fast track route. As Penny said, some of the Open University routes can take a longer period of time, but you know, we're always trying to kind of be innovative in that regard. It's important, as I say in the report, that we have a real balance as well of experience. So we focus on retention as much as recruitment. And in terms of the diversity comments, it's not necessarily that it will be a social care report on diversity. I know the head of people and performance will be bringing a council-wide report showing statistical information on the diversity characteristics, which is really important. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Danny. Got Councillor Carr online. I think you're on mute, David.
Sorry about that.
No, you're grand.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we had a discussion in Social Services Committee last week, and I think it is worrying vacancies, and and obviously it's something that's common in other authorities as well. And I did put forward to Jenny and some ideas how we can make ourselves more attractive as an authority. I think one of the keys is to actually make ourselves more welcoming, talk more about equality and diversity. As someone who did do the social work degree all those years ago, I think I know the psyche of the people that they're actually do that degree, and to make it attractive to come to Conway. I think that's what I discussed with Jenny. Talk about equality and diversity more, you know, and talk about putting equality at the heart of everything we do. We need to be more attractive because, unfortunately, we are competing with other authorities like maybe Stockport or wherever. People do now have a choice where they go. So what I'm saying is, let's make Conway more attractive for social work graduates and people that are coming into social work to come here. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, David. Any other questions, observations, members? No? Oh, sorry, Simon. Apologies. Simon online.
Yes, I think it's the most welcome. Sorry, Chair. It's a most welcome report. This really, it can save us a lot of money in the long term too, which I'm sure you'll always be in favour of. Getting proper workforce planning saves us a fortune on temporary staff and not bank people to cover the places. I really welcome this report. It's a great step forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Grummy?
Been moved already. I'm happy to move it or second it.
Okay, so we've got recommendation 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4 and 2.5. If you want to move those, I'd be delighted to second them. Can we show for in favour of accepting that, members? Wonderful. Thank you very much for the report and thanks for taking us through it, Penny. So agenda item 12 sits in the audit policy and performance portfolio. It's the local area energy plan land review and policy approach for onshore renewables, which is part of the deposit replacement local development plan that reports on pages 200 to 306. I'll hand over to Councillor Chris.
Thank you, Leader. This report sets out the proposed framework, including the policy and local search areas to assess onshore wind and solar development in our replacement local development plan, RLDP. It's been supported at the strategic planning group and at overview and scrutiny, and it follows national guidance coming from Future Wales and Planning Policy Wales. So smooth sailing so far. The appendices contain 2 evidence papers as part of background paper 60. In a moment, I will ask Robin Sandham, our senior planning officer sitting behind me, to put up the relevant maps and explain them. But you can see from the report that specialist viability studies and technical work has been achieved. Cabinet should note that this report does not cover specific sites and issues. We have the policy approach to local search areas in front of us, however. The approach supports the intervention in the local area energy plan, which we adopted as a council in 2021. And that is to increase onshore renewables and provide a clear criteria-based policy to assess relevant schemes when they are submitted. Leader, local energy generation products and community involvement and ownership will only become more important as we move forwards. A key barrier will be the grid capacity, but huge amounts of funding will be going into expanding this. As I noted at scrutiny, both the Prime Minister and the new First Minister of Wales on recent visits to Welsh renewable energy sites have reinforced the importance this is to Wales and the UK as a whole. At this point, I want to thank Robin and the strategic planning team who've done so much work on this. I would like to propose that we accept the recommendation on page 201 at 2.2 A and B, but I'll give Robin the opportunity to come in about the maps now. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Over to you, Robin.
Thanks, Leader and Chris. Just to go through the maps in order as they appear in the report. The first map shows with the green boundary the pre-assessed areas that were introduced in the National Plan and Planning Policy Wales. And in PPW, it states that local authorities should introduce and decide on local search areas. So we've applied this constraints-based exercise to come up with these smaller local search areas. So it's not a green light to development, it's just asking developers to look in those areas first. They'll still have to apply for full planning permission and do all the relevant background work to support that. So the first map is showing wind. Some different constraints were applied for solar for the second map. And then the third map shows a combined wind and solar, shows the overlap with the pre-assessed areas. So we can develop within those areas, but they were identified in the national plan as areas for larger wind turbine development of over 10 megawatts. And if they are over that threshold, ministers decide. It's PEDU who decides those applications, so it's out of our hands, but we are consultees on those applications. So anything below 10 megawatts for wind and solar will come to planning committee, and the council can decide those. So the grey area is where both are combined for the local search areas, and the blue hatching is additional solar. So that's those maps. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Robin. Back to you, Chris.
Do you want me to read out the recommendations or?
I think we've got them in front
Yeah,
of us, our members.
thank
so,
you.
As you say, it's fairly clear. Is there any other questions, comments, members? No, it was scrutiny agreed with the recommendations. There were no amendments. So if there's no questions on that basis, I'm quite happy to second it. And Chris is proposing. Can we show we're in favour of accepting it? Okay, thank you, members. So agenda item 12, exempt items, Local Government Act 1972, section 100A and schedule 12A, access to information. To consider passing a resolution under the provisions of section 100A brackets 4 of the above act to exclude the public and press from the meeting during consideration of the following items, and it's likely that if present there would be disclosure to them of exempt information as defined in paragraph 14 of part 4 of schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972. So members, if we're happy to move into private session, can I have a proposer? Mr. Nigel, seconder, Jeff, I'm sure we're in favour, members. Okay, we'll just take a minute for the cameras to switch off. Thank you.